Okay, it is the 9th of June, starting the tour from a different perspective. I pulled up the rocks that had been along here, and because there's no point in having a little area of weeds, now that the Pondless Waterfall is in, and so I've extended the gravel path all the way down. I'm going to continue working on it this afternoon. It will be a continuation of the rock garden in this area here that goes to the edge of our fire pit area, but this will all be filled in over the summer. It's a lot of rocks and boulders and stuff to move to continue the tumbled boulder look at the base. But I figured I'd start down here, and the Pondless Waterfall has come along nicely. Be careful of underlayment. It can wick out water. Did not have a leak. That was my problem. Said underlayment. Redid it a few times. The pollinator garden is doing well. I'm probably going to bring up the rosemary and transplant that to other areas and just make this all gravel. I'm redoing that. But everything is good. The lavender garden looks awesome. I mean, it's coming along nicely. And obviously I have other lavender specimens that have been in longer. I gave them a really hard prune, almost down to, their base. And everyone's like, oh, if you don't cut them back, you just get wood. They came back nicely. So I'll probably do better this year, but I'm pleased with that. And then we have the ever wonderful cricket. Best dog in the whole wide world. Anyway, I will eventually transplant my ginger, which is way overgrown, still indoors under a light. The basil, I broke down and got Suncredibles again this year. I'm going to try to overwinter these Vermillionaires, just like I did the bell peppers in the orangery. And I've got one Bergotten sage I'm going to transplant from there into the backside of that pot. It'll just look better when I'm done. Amazingly enough, the grapes on the arbor are great. They are just coming along. Got lovely little clusters everywhere. They're so cute. They were really cute when they first came up and they were the tiny flowers. A lot of the wineries in Virginia we had that late kind of frost that hit and the windstorms and just shredded their stuff, but mine did pretty well. And we have winds coming off the Blue Ridge, which is right there, as you can see, in between the trees, and it just races through here. So, the tomatoes suffered a bit from the wind damage, but the grapes did well. Like I said, more lavender. I've been transplanting my strawberries out of the base up into sort of a makeshift strawberry tower, and I ordered some, and the starts did nothing for me. I did everything right. So I do have some I started from seed from Proven Winners. They're ever-bearing strawberries, whatever they're called, in multiple colors, and it's true the white did not germinate well. But I'll be transplanting and putting those in there, and then pretty much the rest of this is just all going to be rosemary, because I'm going to abuse it like rosemary and lavender and grapes like to be abused. So these suffered because they got too much water last year, but they're rebounding. So the garden itself is pretty awesome. I started out being so good and perfectly spacing each individual onion, and then I went, oh wow, that's going to take like the entire outside perimeter. So I started putting 2 and 3 together, which eventually turned into clusters of 3, 4, or more, because I had other things I needed to plant or start from seed. Cucumbers are coming up in the same time. Don't know what's difference between, those 3 feet, but there you go. And I just started some honey nut, butternut squash, winter squash in that corner. I've got beans coming up both sides of the new cattle panel I put in. The scarlet runners are pretty much for the hummingbirds. They like them, and I'm horrible about changing out a hummingbird feeder. So I I got a really cute one as a Christmas gift from a friend's daughter, Elizabeth, and I haven't put it out because I know my limitations. I'm better at taking care of plants than I am at changing out the feeders. So I don't want to poison hummingbirds. No, cicadas. And the hummingbirds had been visiting my kale that had bolted and flowered. So they've been around. I've got some natural stuff for them. You can see my tomato jungle through there. I have indeterminates in the center, which I will make them a little sort of hoop over the top of those so that it can go up and down the other side. The determinants are on the other side. I've got garlic, and these are elephant garlics, basically, and started some bushing cucumbers. The one exciting thing is how well the non-pollinator bed is doing. I mean, there are some pollinators in there, I've discovered. They got in somehow and can't figure out how to get out. But I have no flea beetles. I have no three-lined potato beetles. I have nothing like that in there. No white butterflies laying little eggs on my brassicas. It is awesome. The potatoes have been in a few months now. The storm that blew through last week really blew them over. So I'm just going to let nature take its course with those and hopefully harvest them in another month or so and regain space. I don't think I need a second harvest this year of potatoes, but yeah, I've got success. I'm going to put in at least one, probably two more of these beds that I can then kind of tent screen, if you will, and I am happy as a clam with that. So I've got parsnips that are flowering. I transplanted them from last year's, and I've got celeriac that is flowering, which I find exciting because they actually did something, and then I have seeds to do more. And then brassicas and pak choi and kale that is really happy in there. And we had a rain last night, and the brassicas just hold the water really well, which I know I've got some ladybugs and some praying mantises and then a few little flying insects in there. And there's ample, sort of water in there to keep the insects going because the leaves hold it really well. I probably do have a couple little slugs in there, but, compared to what the white butterfly and its offspring do to my controls out here, I mean, seriously, the one in the back is just like shredded. And that's what I figured I would just sort of see what happened, and that's what happened. So I've started some amaranth. I have 4 that has come up. I've thrown out new seed. I've got new ones that are popping up, and I got to kill some weeds. But working through that. So like I said, the garlic, the bushing cucumbers, and then I have Swiss chard, perpetual spinach, lettuce, and kale that have all bolted and gone to flower. I'm going to collect way too much seed, but ever have an issue, we have lots of microgreens. So I've got 2 kinds of beets going in. I've got golden beets and red beets, whatever they are, and a mix at the end. I had no idea borage got that big. None of mine did last year. That's one plant. My advice is never seed start borage or calendula or even nasturtium, none of those, just direct sow them. So I did put in some parsley strictly for the black swallowtail butterflies that we get here, and these are peanuts. Who knew? I actually got them last year and never put them in the ground, and I was like, why not? Let's see if any of them germinate. And I had 6. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 came up, and I'm probably going to pull up some of the parsnips and the celeriac and put in here, or else I'll just transplant my seedlings. and intermix in there. And then I have my sacrificial eggplants that do have flea beetle damage and something else, but I don't care. They're just eating these, and I'm all good with that because we are not a huge eggplant family. But I'd rather they eat these than my tomatoes or my peppers, which are, now that we finally got some heat, they're coming on. I've got loofahs growing up this side, apparently all growing to the north side of my house. That's a little odd. And then I had 3 bell pepper plants that I overwintered. Good Lord, those are huge. I gotta tie them back again. And they were already flowering and setting some bell pepper fruit before I even brought them out, which was amazing. It really does work. They overwintered beautifully in the orangery, which is back under there. And I will be doing that again next year, maybe even more. I mean, I'm always gonna have to put in new plants, so I figure the root ball is gonna be too big by the time, it's completed its second season for me to do that. But they're right. They are perennial. They worked. I am zone 6B, 7A in Northern Virginia, and I'm happy as a clam with that. My tomato jungle, I have pruned it back 3 times already. I gave them very new, fresh, loose, fertile soil, and they've taken off. And as I said, my indeterminates are in there, and good Lord, I gotta redo the stringing. So those are all coming along really well. As mentioned, I have borage here that has to compete, so it's gotten tall. Calendula's already up. I did some little borage. The borage that's in here was what I seed started, and so I transplanted a small plant. Compare that to a direct sown that is massive, and this one I did a direct sow maybe a couple of weeks ago, which is right here, and it's already happier and healthier than what I transplanted. So never again. And I'm going to rip out some calendula. I sprinkled a bunch in there to see, the what if maybe I needed to put a few in, and they all germinated. So I need to prune those out. They're a little too much. I mean, I need sacrificial plants, but not that many sacrificial plants. So, and then I'll get a little more light to my lower cherries, my Tiny Tims or Tom Thumbs or whatever they are. And as I said, inside I've got multiple beans and calendula, and again, all the calendula germinated. But the scarlet runners are pretty much there for our lovely hummingbirds that come out, and the bees are happily working in there, happily hitting all the different stuff. We've got a lot of bumbles and solitaries, and occasionally I see some honeybees, but mostly bumbles and solitaries here. And I've given them ample houses, and I know where their underground cave is in my yard, and the dogs do too. So that's, oh my goodness, seriously, how has this happened? I just trimmed and staked everything, and I started the Florida weave, and obviously I would need to get on it and do it again, or at this point I think it's beyond that. It's too hard to weave, so I'll just stake like I did last year. The indeterminates are good. All my little peas are doing well. I've been battling aphids on them already, but I seem to be winning a temporary war with them. I had some ladybugs that were hanging out a minute ago. I don't know where they've all gone to. And then, of course, I have my carrots, and some you can't see really well because of the beets have gotten so huge, but pleased with that. And my husband doesn't eat carrots, so it's pretty much just for me, and I will eat them any shape, form, or fashion. Raw, braised, in soups, in juicing them, you name it. I am a carrot person. So yeah, so it's all doing really well. Everything is coming up, and we did wrap our fruit trees, our 6 apples down there and the 3 apples over here that we're going to transplant to those this fall because of cicadas. They're just zipping around looking for thin little branches to lay their eggs, and we didn't want to sacrifice our fruit trees for that. One did not make it, but I knew that last year. So that little makeshift to keep the deer out, which has worked, we can finally take down that little eyesore and then get those over inside our true deer fencing, which goes around the whole perimeter of this backyard area, and enjoy our fruit trees going forward and not have any loss due to cicadas. So there's a plan. Seems to be working. Hello, bees. Buzz, 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 buzz. We are busy little bees out here. A lot going on. And of course this is here to keep the dogs from going in there and wanting to dig in the tomato bed, because, you know, that's not good. And they had been, one of the reasons that I did the sort of raised planters for the strawberries is I have one dog who loves strawberries apparently, and when he had eaten them all, he started digging to see if there was anything underground, you know, that would make him happy. And so I did some makeshift things to stop the digging. Obviously I was more concerned, it was happening last fall and over the winter, with what it might have done to the grapevines, and they're fine. All of them lived. So now it's just transplanting the strawberries, which I need to start transplanting to those next, and then bring the remaining rosemaries over here and just let them go. I've already cut these back a few times. I had a friend here this past weekend taking a bunch of rosemary home, and strawberries, by the way. Didn't want any lavender though, and that's a shame, because the lavender, I only put them in last year. So I completely amended the soil so that it was sand and rock dust down about 18 inches to hopefully keep them dry and happy and abused like they would be in the Mediterranean. So they like it. And then behind them, we have heavy clay soil with rock, and the 3 butterfly bushes are right on the cusp of clay, so they can get to moisture as they need it. And they seem to enjoy that too. And last year I had the monolith fountain here, which has moved down there because why would I keep both up when I now have a 100-gallon basin dug into a solid, 2 feet of rock, and it had a center hole, so I could do some type of feature here. So I just moved it, and then with great pain I also moved the bluestone sort of mini monolith there, which is like an iceberg. The tip is nothing compared to the size of the bottom of it, but I have rocks around it right now. So that's part of what I'm doing today. I'll be working on this a little more, and then continuing to rock and get prepared for finishing the back side of the fountain, and getting a few more of the boulders that are on the property brought over to complete the aesthetic and make for a pleasant weed-free rock garden. And why is it weed-free? Because I'm putting pond liner under everything. That one's laying over there waiting to come down over here, and then I'll get another one that'll go up the backside. And I'm sorry, I don't want to weed. If it is a rock garden, it is just gonna be rock, which is what this is in this center. Pleasant, weed-free, just I have an abundant natural resource that I'm going to put to use. So that is where the garden stands right now. The dogs are not yet even trying to get into a kiddie pool to cool off or run through it. and I have very little left to deal with as far as the garden putting out. I'm going to start another thing of lettuce, but I'm going to keep it inside under a grow light so that we just have access to fresh salad as we want it. Come out and gather other elements for it, and starting to get the orangery cleaned up and ready for oh my god, the next growing season. It's almost mid-June, so it's never too early to start planting that. Of course, you can only do it on unsunny, cooler days, because it was hitting over 100 degrees in there over the weekend, and that's miserable. And that's with the screens open and airflow. So anyway, that's it for the June tour.